Good morning, friends. My name is Shelby if you are new here, and come along with me as I get some much needed garden tasks going. It is an absolutely lovely morning out here. It's overcast, it was just misting, it's not too hot. I'm sure I will be breaking a sweat in just a matter of like an hour or an hour and a half once that sun fully starts to rise. We have so much to get to. I feel like if I don't do these things today, I'm like really cutting it close on being behind what I would like to be for my garden schedule. So with that said, let's get started. I'm trying to get the last of the weeds pulled out of this bed before I get this garden bed seeded today, which is what my big goal is, and the one behind me. So spoiler, I am nowhere near where I wanted to have been a few weeks ago with the garden. I thought I would have had more garden beds prepared and ready by now, but life happens and we got to make the best of it. I'm just going to focus on these two beds and a few other things because I want something, you know, something's better than nothing. I don't know where my pen went. I just had it. I literally just had it, which this is the type of thing that drives me insane. I'm actually pretty good at remembering what I put where, and as a bonus, I'm filming it. So if I don't find the pen, then I can always just look back and at the video and see what I put where. These are things I've been trying to grow for many seasons now, especially if you are a current subscriber, you will know some of the things. And some of the things I do grow seasonally, of course. So the winter luxury pumpkin, I actually was able to grow one of these this summer. So I know it's possible. And I'm hoping maybe with it being a little bit more mild out, I can do it. Then I'm also going to put my one last candy roaster squash seed over there too, and just see what works. They may not both germinate. One may not. My one last candy roaster squash seed. I have high hopes for this one little baby seed. We'll see what happens. On to my winter luxury pumpkins. I know, ideally, you would not want to grow these things together right next to each other, but I don't know what's gonna work, what's not gonna work. So I'm just gonna plant two winter luxuries over here, one right here, one right here. If you are new here, I don't always follow the rules. So, you know, my garden's a big evolving art experiment. So let me just put that out there. All right, next, I should have shown you the packet. I have my green arrow peas. Now, typically, it's not recommended to get your sugar peas or snap peas or anything like that started in my zone. Probably not until like around January, honestly, but I'm just gonna go for it because the weather feels pretty tame. You never know what could happen. And when these start growing well, it's like candy to my kids. We can never bring any of this inside, mind you, because they will come out here and they will hunt and gather and forage every single last sugar pea, snap pea, all that kind of stuff. But that makes me really happy. So I'm hoping, just gonna give it a shot and plant them all on the back right here, and then do like another little trellis. I find that the sugar peas, they just don't do really well on the cattle panel trellises because they are so thin, and then I just get them like kind of going up one little wire, where these do really well with a structure that has a lot more wireage, if that makes any sense. So I'm gonna build a different trellis for my sugar peas and just put them in the back. So I'm just gonna plant these about an inch into the soil and about, I don't know, like 2 inches or so apart. This side of the cattle panel arch, I'm going to do my muncher cucumbers, which are my favorite type of cucumbers to grow. And cucumbers, you know, if you're not familiar with growing them, they can be really sensitive. So I'm really hoping that the fall is going to be forgiving for my cucumber plants. It is, so it's like heavenly outside. I love when it's like this. It's windy, it's so overcast. A little bit of mist is happening every once in a while. This is like a dream, and I think I appreciate it more because it has been so awful out for so long, and it's like a rebirth when the weather finally starts to get a little bit less severe from the 100-degree temperatures, because there's a really big difference between 85 degrees and 95 degrees. I'll put 3 gray zucchini seeds in here. Of course, I will definitely be trimming or thinning this out. Ideally, I would just like maybe one individual plant, or one of each kind. So just 2 plants. If you are a current subscriber or you've watched some of my past videos, you might be wondering what happened to all her tomatoes and peppers that she started a few weeks ago. So I put those underneath my couch in my back porch, and typically that couch has some cushions on them, but I had removed the cushions and I assumed that would be fine. But my chickens, which were free ranging, they found the trays underneath there, and they managed to get to basically all the seeds. So I'm gonna start a new round of tomatoes probably today again, and peppers, see if I can, just give it another shot. It's not the main focus right now, but that is what happened to my tomato and my pepper starts, unfortunately. Okay, so for this bed over here, I decided on the carrot. I've got the Scarlet Nantes, which is one of my favorite carrots to grow. The Muncher cucumber, which I will plant on this part of the arch. So I'll utilize the arch in that way. Then I'm going to grow a few different beans. Beans are really quick to grow. I'm gonna grow some garbanzo beans, a bush bean provider, and my lima beans. Now I did try to grow them over there, my big in-ground garden, like last season or so, and they did germinate. They were trying to grow. Every time any little bit of greenery would pop out of the ground, either a bunny or a gopher tortoise, I think it's a gopher tortoise, would mow them down. So they just didn't stand a chance. I'm thinking with this bed being like, I don't even know how tall, I don't remember how tall these were, but they're around 2 feet tall. They definitely can't get in here. That's why I like to have some raised garden beds and then some things in the ground. It gives you more opportunity with certain critters that would hone in on those crops. Now that I found my marker, I'm going to get these ones actually marked because it'll make my life a little bit easier. I like to use these popsicle sticks because they just kind of biodegrade back into the soil, and every year I change things up so much, there's no way I could just be responsible enough to maintain like metal ones and reuse them every single year. I change the varieties and all that different type of stuff constantly. So I'm gonna get these labeled. I don't know if you can see my overgrown garden beds back there. I need to get to those today, honestly. I need to get to a lot of stuff like in the next few days. So all right, I'm putting my National pickling cucumbers here. I'm going to super load these up. The reason why is there is a pretty active ant presence right now on the corner of this garden bed, and I feel like they are going to just eat the seeds. I don't know if that's what they do, but I'm just gonna load it up and then hope some of the cucumbers germinate. Okay, I'm putting my cucumbers on the arch because last year we had a hurricane in September, and I had all these beautiful cucumbers in my no-dig garden area, and the hurricane just wiped them out. Like the wind and all that, they were so sensitive. So I'm hoping that maybe they'll be a little bit more supported on the cattle panel arch. I'm going to do the garbanzo beans here and the lima beans there. Now I'll give them not gonna do too much. I'll just do like 2 rows of each. I have my garbanzo beans, which I just think would be the coolest thing ever to plant something like a chickpea garbanzo bean and then harvest it and make homemade hummus. Wouldn't that be delightful? Absolutely lovely. The bunnies do not stand a chance over here. I like to maximize my garden beds. So I'm going to do the sugar and snap peas and then the blue shelling peas all along this back row. That way we've got a bunch growing in the middle and then I can harvest from the back too. These ones are kind of cool because the pods are purple. So I'm just going to super load up these back areas. It should be a really interesting garden bed if everything comes to fruition, honestly. I'm actually kind of running out of space in here, so I'm just going to do the carrots. Now, the secret to carrots is just getting them to germinate, I find. Once they have germinated, for me personally, it's little to no garden intervention. They just kind of do their own thing, and as long as they're in the appropriate soil median, nice and fluffy and rich with good drainage, and they're getting water, they're gonna do well. If you don't make it past the germination stage, then of course it's just not gonna work. But I find that is the most challenging part of growing carrots. They take 14 to 21 days to germinate. Sometimes it can be less than 14 days. I've actually seen this particular variety be less than 14 days. It all is just a matter of how you're maintaining moisture in the soil. Now I'm going to do a little trick here so that hopefully it will help encourage germination. So what I like to start out by doing is dumping my carrot seeds in my hand. Just get a whole bunch of them. This is personally what works for me because I'm like a messy gardener, and then I just fix it later. Just method to my madness. So they're really, really tiny seeds. Of course, it's a pain in the butt to individually plant these in the ground and make it all neat from the jump. I just like to just sprinkle them all over the top so they're everywhere. And if you're somebody who's super neat and clean, this would drive you bananas. But I just like to spread them all over and just very gently, barely kind of put them in the ground. I don't even really feel like they honestly need to be covered at all. Just honestly sprinkle them on the soil. That's what the plant would do in the wild. They would just go to seed. The seed pods would kind of explode all over and they would just sit on the surface anyway. So I'm just going to kind of mimic what would happen naturally with the carrots, and that typically works for me. Now this is the part that will help you when it comes to germination. Of course, you'll want to water your seeds really liberally. Make sure that soil is super hydrated because we're really wanting to maintain moisture levels. That is the key for germinating carrots. There are other seeds that are more tolerant to inconsistent soil level or hydration levels in the soil, and I find carrots are not. Actually, it would have probably been better if I did this before I put seeds in, but here we are. Next, I'll grab my cardboard and just start laying that on top of here. I think you could probably just use a tarp if that's all you have available to you. You could use, I've heard of people using wood planks to cover up the seeds. This is just going to create that greenhouse effect where that moisture is going to really stay in the soil as much as possible. I would still water the soil and make sure that it's not losing all the moisture, but covering up the seeds through germination. Check after 7 days what's going on, and then after a week really start kind of looking every day, because once the seeds have germinated, you'll want to take that cardboard or wood or whatever you've done to lock in the moisture off of there, so of course they can start growing into little carrot plants. Okay. And it does help that this is already wet, this cardboard. Not much to see now, but if I come out here and I make sure to water my plants, make sure that the ants aren't eating all the seeds and everything, I should have at least some type of a garden. Now, the next thing I need to get to is something I should have gotten to 2 weeks ago, but it's not too late. It's got to happen. It has to happen. And if I don't do it now, I'm gonna be in the situation I was in last year, which I told myself I would learn from my mistakes. I made a whole video on it, in fact. That is onions. This is the time, especially, I don't know about you long day onions, people growing seasons. I just know about the short day onions. And from that, it's limited knowledge because I've only done it successfully once. I do know, however, that last year I got like 4 onions started in September. I'm not kidding, 4 onion seeds in all started in September because I direct sowed. I don't even know why I can't say that right now. I directly sowed my seeds in the ground right back there in one of my big no-dig garden beds. And shocker, the germination was absolutely awful. I mean, there was only 4 out of like hundreds of seeds germinated. So I later went back and I tested out a method which I now call the dump method. I'm trying to get like into a nice shady area, which I now call the dump method. It works so well for onions, like so well. I'm gonna show you exactly what that is, but long story short, I did that, had so many onion starts, you know, for basically just a few dollars. And then I planted all of my onion, like my little onion starts in, I want to say around November. I don't remember exactly when it was, but that led to, I still had a lot of onions harvested. We're actually eating our onions every single day, which is the coolest thing ever. It could have been better if I would have timed things right and I would have gotten things started. My starts started in September and in the ground no later than October. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Whew. Okay, let me show you what the dump method is. If you can think of a more graceful name for it, I'm open to suggestions. Right about now, I am very thankful for my banana tree forest because it's making it bearable to be out here. The sun has fully risen and that dreamy overcast is now gone, which is okay. On to how I do my onions. This worked fantastic last year, absolutely fantastic. You'll want to stick around if you are someone who wants to grow onions and you've struggled with it. Now, know your zone. This is not a how to grow. It's not necessarily like a full-on how to grow onions video. One of the most important things to note before getting started growing onions is know what type of onions are appropriate for your zone. This is super important. There are short day onions, there are indeterminate onions, and then there are long day onions. Now, the short day onions are going to require a certain amount of light for the time of the year that it's appropriate to grow them for. Our best time of the year to grow onions would be anywhere from like October through the winter time, because the temperatures are really mild and it's not going to encourage those onions to bolt. So we, as a result, have less light available during that time, so we need to grow seeds that are referred to as short day onions. So they need less time and photosynthesis from the light to create an onion bulb, in short. And for the long day onions, these are people who are up north in a nutshell, and they have more cooler climates in the summertime, the spring, and they can grow onions that need like 12 to 14 plus hours a day, if I'm saying that correctly, to create an onion bulb. So they need more light, more photosynthesis for those long day onions. So it's super important that you look up what type of onions are required for your zone before getting started. Otherwise, you're going to do all of this for nothing. In Florida, we grow the short day onion varieties. Now, that was super confusing to me at first. for years actually, and now I finally understand that. Okay, so all the onion seeds I bought were from Amazon, which I actually don't typically do. I needed the onion seeds right now. I find that the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's, which is super frustrating to me, they mostly carry long day onion varieties, which I don't understand why, because of course that doesn't make sense for my climate. And I feel like they're setting up novice gardeners for failure, because they're just offering these onion varieties that don't make sense ever for our climate. That's why I didn't go to those big box stores, and I had to rush to get these seeds, and I didn't get them from like In My Garden or something like that, because I just wanted to make sure I got these seeds right away. So I got these all from Amazon. I will include a link because they came within 2 days. Gotta love 2-day shipping for Amazon. Now last year I grew the Texas Grano onion variety, which was amazing. I would definitely suggest that, and I am growing Texas Grano again this year. I believe this one is Texas Grano. And these came in like a 3-pack. Like these all came together. These are all short day onions. And then these came together in a pack as well. So that's pretty cool. And then I got some individual ones. I grew the Texas Grano, which was knocking out of the park. And I also grew the Violet D. Galmi or Violet D. Jalmi. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but I grew those 2 varieties primarily. And the Violet D. Galmi was I think the only short day onion variety I could find on Baker Creek's website. So it's very limited options for short day I find, except outside of these options. And that was one of the only kind of really cool heirloom varieties that I could find. Those were amazing. They're kind of like a purple type onion and very, very sweet. We have been eating them every single day. They stored really well, they cured well, and I don't know when I made that harvest video of my onions, but they're still rocking and rolling, and we're still enjoying them in our, right now they're in our refrigerator because we're eating them just constantly. But we're about to run out, so I need to grow some more onions. My goal this year is to grow a year's worth of onions. Last year I think I grew like 4 months worth of onions, maybe. It was my first time really giving it a go. So as far as the onion varieties I picked an early Texas Grano. I think I just wanted to have more options this year. I also picked a onion hybrid yellow Granix. So I can't attest to whether or not these are going to do great. I don't know, I've never done it. I have a bunching onion white Grano. The red Creole, which is a short day onion variety. I did grow a few red onions last year. Absolutely magical. That was so cool. The early Texas Grano again. So Texas Grano is a really, really good option for short day. And the Crystal White Wax. These are the onion varieties I have right now. As for how I start my onion seeds, and actually this is how I prefer to start my spinach seeds and a few other things, because there are some root systems that do well with this particular type of method, and there's some root systems that don't. So some roots will have like a tap root system, like cilantro for example, or carrots. When those particular seeds germinate right away, they establish a really sensitive and deep root almost immediately. So doing this particular method would disturb the roots too much, and it wouldn't set them up for success. But I find with onions, for example, they can handle the rough root disturbance. So I start out with one of these metal trays, and I've been using these trays for a few seasons now. Absolutely perfect. They're stainless steel for starting my seeds. Some of them I actually chose not to drill holes in the bottom. They don't come with holes. And then other ones, let's see, and then other ones I actually had my husband, I don't know if you can see them, drill a few holes in the bottom for drainage. Now those ones would be perfect for like my tomatoes and peppers, because you will want drainage. Now this method is ideal for the ones without holes in the bottom, but you can also do it with holes, because we're trying to just lock in that moisture. And it's, as a bonus, going to be a really minimal amount of effort during that germination process. So I fill up my tray with my preferred seed soil, or seed starting soil, which is just mushroom compost that I had laying around. I get my seeds right here. I put all of the seeds in that packet, all of them, in my hand. Then, this is the easy part, I just dump them all over the top. You will want to get them into the soil just a little bit. These don't need to be in the soil very much. Then we're going to want to gently water, which my husband just ran over my garden hose that would miss this. So I'm just gonna have to really gently water this. Ooh. Again, I'm just gonna start doing this before putting the seeds in. So you just wanna get it nice and wet. Best to start before putting your seeds in. You'll want to make sure all the soil is wet all the way through, especially if there's drainage holes, especially because that water's just going to escape. But it's perfect if there are no drainage holes, as we want that water to kind of stay in there through this whole process. You can use a pie pan, you can use a stainless steel pan that you don't really care about. You can use like a baking dish, something like that too, if you don't have or want to go out and buy something like this. I will include a link for these if you're interested though, but there are plenty of options you can do at home. So this is really saturated at this point, and then the next part is really key. Put my place marker in here. This is the Texas early grano, and this next part is super key to the success. Okay, I got this idea from a video I watched on like how to germinate onion seeds, because I was having the hardest time ever germinating my onions. I felt really discouraged. Then I watched this video, and this gentleman, I wish I remembered where the video came from, but he basically put onions in like a Tupperware container, put the lids on it, put the onion seeds in there, put the lid on it after he watered them, and he had an outstanding germination. So then I started doing that, and it was just an absolute game changer. So I grab plastic wrap. This actually isn't plastic wrap. It is Compostic, 100% compostable cling wrap. So I'm not really sure what it's made of. I will include a link for it because I'm always trying to look for alternative plastic options. So it's supposedly not plastic at all, but you can use plastic wrap. That's actually what I did last year. And kind of the pain about this stuff is that they don't have, it's like a no waste company, so there's nothing to cut it, so you'll need scissors. And then I just take my plastic wrap, I'm gonna try to do this with one hand, and I just cover the top, which I have just done a really poor job doing. So I just cover it up, because we're trying to create that greenhouse effect. We're trying to retain and lock in the moisture only during the germination process. I'm just gonna put this seed marker down like this. But I'm telling you, it was amazing. I had so many sprouts. I just almost didn't even know what to do with them. Let's see if I can do a better job this time. Once the seeds have germinated, very important, again, we'll want to take the covering off the top. And if you don't want to use plastic wrap or this weird compostable plastic that I have just found, you can use another pie pan or another dish, whatever is similar, and just plop that over the top. Or you can use Tupperware and just use the lid from the Tupperware as well. So anything like that, you can get creative. What we're doing is we're just locking in the moisture right here. And you will see in a few weeks, these are going to be loaded with like just greenery, and it's going to be like grass, you know, that's how thick it's going to be. So I'm going to do this with all of the other seeds I have, and hopefully have some starts ready to go in the ground no later than the first week in October. I'll do this one more time, quicker, so you guys can see. We'll do the crystal white wax. I had already pre-soaked these after the first experience. That way they're all nice and wet. I'm just gonna get my onion seeds, all of them, the whole shebang, this whole entire seed packet in there. Doesn't matter. It will not hurt them to be overcrowded. Trust me. So I pulled them apart last year. They were so intertwined. You just pull out a huge mat of onions. They look like this is impossible to separate them. They just come apart like butter. Just no problem at all. They untangle like no issue. And then you just plop those individual starts in the ground, and it is so easy. With the plastic wrap or the whatever this is, I don't know what it's made out of. Gotta keep an eye on them though. You will need to keep an eye on them. But this worked so well last year. I was like, I have to scream this from the rooftops so that anybody else who's struggling can know, because they gotta hear this tip. But you'll want to keep an eye on these because they will start to rot if they've germinated and you haven't done anything to remove the lid from these. So it's as simple as that. What now? You will want to get these ideally on a covered back porch. That way it's still nice and warm out, but they're not going to be beaten down by the sun and further just exposed to elements, because we're trying to create a controlled environment with covering up the onions. That's really the whole point here. So ideally put them on like a covered back porch or somewhere similar, but you still want them outside because you want that heat to encourage the germination. So here are my 2 trays of onions. That alone is probably like 200 onion starts potentially. And I think it's a lot more economical than buying those onion sets because they're more expensive, and there's some negatives to buying onion sets because you could disturb the environment and they could just not grow as big and all that different type of stuff. I find that starting onions from seed is super easy, and it's worth giving a try. I'm hoping that the garden beds behind me that you're seeing will look very different in the next few months. I'm hoping that I can get some of these other ones cleaned up in the next few days, not few months. But I feel really good now that I've got some onions going. I have some beds going. So it's not nothing at this point. So I feel a little bit accomplished. It looks like it's about to storm. So I'm going to head inside, and I will catch you guys next week. Bye.